Hello. Welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this chapter of Only Human by Olivia and Lacey Julius.
I woke up with the soft hum of machines in the background and pale sunlight filtering in through the hospital blinds. For the briefest moment, I forgot everything. The warmth of the blanket felt familiar, my head heavy with sleep, and for that single blissful second I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. Then I moved. My body shifted in the bed too easily, too smoothly, and a lock of dark hair fell into my face. My heart sank, and the weight of reality came crashing back down on me. I sat up slowly, brushing the hair back with a hand that didn't feel like mine. My body, this body, still felt alien. Still wrong. The door opened, and my mom walked in, carrying a small shopping bag and wearing the careful, cautious expression she always had lately, like I might shatter if she said the wrong thing. "Morning, sweetheart," she said softly. "How did you sleep?" I didn't answer. I just stared at my knees, the hospital gown bunching up around me. Sleep didn't mean much when every time I woke up, I remembered I wasn't me anymore. She set the bag on the bed beside me, her voice brightening in that forced way adults use when they're trying to fix something they can't. "Guess what? Today's the big day, you're being discharged." I blinked, lifting my head to look at her. "I'm going home?" "Yep," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "The doctors say you're stable and there's no reason to keep you here any longer." For a second, a flicker of relief cut through the numbness. Going home. No more sterile white walls. No more endless beeping. Just my own room. My own space. I could shut the door, hide under the covers, and not think about this anymore. But then my mom reached into the bag, pulling out folded clothes, and that brief relief turned to dread. "I brought you something to wear home," she said, carefully laying the items on the bed one by one. A t-shirt with some flowery, cursive design on the front, a pair of skinny jeans, and, at the very bottom, another bra and a neatly folded pair of panties. I stared at the clothes, my stomach twisting. "No. Charlotte. No," I said louder, my voice cracking. "Why do I have to wear that?" Mom sighed, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "Because, sweetheart, this is what fits now. These are the clothes I picked out for you." "They're girls' clothes," I spat, my voice shaking with frustration. "And I'm not." The words caught in my throat, my anger choking on something deeper. I swallowed hard, my chest tight, because finishing that sentence felt impossible. It wasn't true anymore, was it? Not in the way it used to be. I looked down at myself, the smooth skin of my arms soft and unmarred. My hands, small and delicate, resting awkwardly in my lap. Even the shape of my legs, visible beneath the thin hospital gown, felt wrong. They weren't my legs anymore. They were slimmer, softer, devoid of the muscle definition I'd worked so hard for during football training. I clenched my fists, the motion too weak, too unfamiliar. No calluses, no strength. Just tiny hands that looked like they belonged to someone else entirely. "And I'm not what?" Mom asked softly, her voice cutting through the heavy silence like a blade. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stared at my lap, my fists trembling as anger, grief, and shame roiled in my chest. "I know this is hard, Charlotte," she said, sitting down on the edge of the bed. Her voice was steady but gentle, the way she used to talk to me when I was little and had scraped my knee or gotten into trouble at school. "I can't imagine how you're feeling right now. But this is your body now. These are your clothes now. You don't have to like it, but you can't ignore it." I looked up at her sharply, the bitterness rising like bile in my throat. "I didn't ask for this," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of everything I couldn't say. "I didn't choose this." She flinched slightly, but her gaze didn't waver. "I know," she said softly. "And I'm sorry. But you're alive, Charlotte. You're here. That's what matters most." I let out a shaky breath, my anger deflating just enough for the crushing reality of her words to sink in. She wasn't wrong, I was alive. But at what cost? I looked down at the clothes she'd bought me, still folded neatly in the bag. A simple pair of jeans, a plain t-shirt, and other things. I could see the strap of a bra peeking out from under the pile, a glaring reminder of just how much my life had changed. "They don't feel like mine," I muttered, barely above a whisper. She tilted her head, watching me carefully. "What do you mean?" "These clothes," I said, gesturing toward the bag. "They don't feel like mine. They feel wrong. Everything does." Mom sighed, reaching out to rest a hand on mine. Her touch was warm, steady, but I pulled away, my fists clenching again. "I don't know how to help you," she said after a moment, her voice soft. "But I want to. Just tell me what you need." I shook my head, my throat tightening. "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't know what I need. I want to feel normal again." Her expression faltered, a flicker of pain crossing her face before she masked it with a soft smile. "Then let's start small," she said gently. "Get dressed. Come downstairs. Take it one step at a time." I hesitated, my gaze shifting back to the bag. The clothes weren't anything special, just ordinary, everyday clothes, but they felt like a challenge, a symbol of everything I didn't want to face. But what choice did I have? With a shaky sigh, I reached for the bag and pulled it closer, my fingers brushing against the soft denim of the jeans. They felt strange in my hands, light and flexible, so different from the jeans I used to wear. The shirt was simple enough, but the bra. My stomach twisted as I pulled it out, the unfamiliar fabric and tiny clasp mocking me. "I don't even know how to put this on," I said bitterly, holding it up like it was some kind of alien artifact. Mom smiled faintly, her tone careful. "You'll figure it out," she said. "I can help if you need me to." I glared at her, the thought of needing help only adding to the knot of frustration in my chest. "I'll do it myself," I snapped. She nodded, standing up and stepping back. "All right," she said. "Take your time. I'll be downstairs when you're ready." As the door clicked shut behind her, I let out a heavy breath, staring at the clothes spread out on the bed. They weren't just clothes. They were a challenge, a test, a reminder that my life was no longer mine. And as I reached for the bra, fumbling with the unfamiliar straps and clasps, I couldn't help but feel like I was losing the battle. The t-shirt was white, soft-looking, but it had a flowery design with some cursive words scrawled across the chest. "Be kind to yourself." Felt like a cruel joke. The jeans were just as bad, tight, slim, unmistakably girls' jeans. And then there was the bra and panties. I wanted to throw them across the room, to scream and tear them apart, but what good would that do? They were mine now, whether I liked it or not. With shaking hands, I pulled off the hospital gown and grabbed the bra first. I hated how quickly I was starting to figure it out, how to put it on, how to adjust it so it felt less wrong. Panties were next, and I didn't look down as I tugged them on. The jeans were snug and unfamiliar, clinging to my legs in a way that made me feel exposed. I shoved my hands into the pockets as soon as they were on, just to give them somewhere to go. Finally, the shirt. I stared at the stupid cursive words as I pulled it over my head, the fabric soft against my skin. Too soft. Too not me. When I looked at the mirror on the wall, I almost didn't recognize the person staring back at me. A girl. A teenage girl with long dark hair tied back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. She looked normal. Like someone you'd see walking down the street, sitting in class, or shopping at the mall. But she wasn't me. I stared at the reflection, my throat tight, my fists curling at my sides. I wanted to rip the clothes off, to break the mirror, to scream until someone fixed this. But no one could. "Charlotte, Mom's voice came softly from the other side of the door. "Are you ready?" I swallowed hard and turned away from the mirror. "Yeah," I muttered, barely loud enough to hear. The door opened, and Mom's face lit up in that fragile way she had now, like she was so desperate for me to be okay. "You look—" "Don't," I said sharply, cutting her off. "Let's just go." She didn't argue. She nodded and stepped aside, letting me walk past her into the hallway. The jeans hugged my legs as I walked, and the bra, stupid and restrictive, reminded me of everything that was wrong with me now. I kept my head down as we made our way toward the exit, ignoring the nurses and doctors who smiled softly at me as we passed. I couldn't stand their looks, the pity in their eyes. This wasn't a new start. It wasn't a second chance. It was a prison. And I was still trying to figure out how I'd survive it. I stared out the car window, my forehead pressed against the cool glass as the world blurred by in streaks of color. My mom hadn't told me where we were going, just that we needed to make a quick stop. I didn't bother asking questions. I didn't want to talk. The jeans clung uncomfortably to my legs, and every shift reminded me of the bra digging into my shoulders. My mom's stupid t-shirt, the one with the cursive "Be kind to yourself" message, felt like it was mocking me, taunting me for not being able to accept this new reality. I wanted to go home, lock myself in my room and never come out. Instead, the car slowed and turned into a familiar neighborhood, and my stomach dropped as I recognized it immediately. Brittany's house. My ex-girlfriend. "What are we doing here?" I said, finally snapping my head toward my mom. She didn't look at me, just pulled the car into the driveway, putting it in park with a careful calmness that only made me angrier. "Mom," I said more sharply, my voice low with warning. She turned off the ignition and looked at me with that same soft, careful expression she always wore these days, like I was made of glass. "I called Brittany. She wants to help." "Help," I repeated, my voice breaking. "With what?" "With this," she said, gesturing vaguely toward me as though she couldn't find the right words. "She's been very understanding. She wants to help you adjust." "Adjust?" I barked out a bitter laugh. "What does that even mean?" "Adjust to what, Mom? Being a girl?" She winced but held her ground. "Charlotte, stop calling me that," I snapped. "Why would you? How could you do this to me? Why would you bring her into this?" "Because you can't do this alone," she said firmly, her voice shaking just a little. "You need someone to help you figure things out, to help you feel normal." "Normal?" I repeated incredulously. "You think hanging out with my ex-girlfriend is going to make me feel normal?" Before she could answer, the front door to Brittany's house swung open, and there she was, standing on the porch like she'd been waiting. Brittany looked just like I remembered her. Long blonde hair that always seemed perfect, jean shorts and a tank top, casual and confident in that way only she could be. Except now she was staring at me. I froze, my chest tightening. She gave me a small, uncertain smile and waved, like this was just some regular visit, like we hadn't broken up 3 months ago after a fight over how much time I was spending on football. "Let's go," Mom said gently, reaching for the door handle. "No," I muttered, panic rising in my throat. "I'm not doing this." She turned to me, her voice soft but firm. "Charlotte, you need this." I clenched my fists, feeling the nails dig into my palms. "No, you need this. You need me to play along, to pretend this is okay so you can feel better about what you did. I didn't ask for this. I don't want this." Her face fell, but before she could respond, Brittany was walking toward the car, her sandals crunching softly against the driveway. My stomach twisted with every step she took closer. "Hey," Brittany said, leaning down to look through the open window on my mom's side. She smiled at me, a little uncertain, like she was trying to figure out what to say. "Hi, Charlotte." Hearing her say that name made me want to crawl out of my skin. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, my face hot, my chest tight. Brittany glanced at my mom, then back at me. "Come on. Let's hang out for a while." I shook my head. "No. I'm not. Please, she said softly. It's just me. No one else. I promise. Her voice, calm and steady, knocked the fight out of me. This was Brittany, the girl I dated for almost a year. The one who used to text me dumb selfies in the middle of class, the one who'd sit in the stands at my games and cheer the loudest when I made a big play. And now she was standing here, smiling at me like I wasn't some freak, like I wasn't a stranger sitting in my own life. I looked at my mom, then back at Brittany. Fine, I muttered, reaching for the car door handle. But this is a bad idea. Brittany stepped back as I climbed out, and I could feel her eyes on me, on my jeans, on the t-shirt, on my stupid ponytail. I shoved my hands into my pockets, hunching my shoulders as if I could make myself smaller. Thanks for coming, Brittany said, her voice soft. I know this can't be easy. I didn't respond. I just stared at the ground. Well, she said after a pause, gesturing toward the house, come on inside. My mom's out for the day, so it's just us. I followed her up the walkway, every step feeling heavier than the last. My mom stayed behind, watching us from the car like she was handing me over to a babysitter. When we stepped into Brittany's house, the familiar smell hit me immediately, vanilla-scented candles and some faint trace of cookies. It was the same as always, but it didn't feel the same. I didn't feel the same. Brittany led me into the living room and flopped onto the couch, patting the cushion next to her. Sit down. You don't have to act like the floor is going to swallow you. I hovered for a second before finally sitting, keeping my back straight and my hands jammed into my pockets. Brittany sat cross-legged, watching me with that same soft, careful smile. So, she said, dragging the word out, how are you holding up? I barked a bitter laugh, looking away. How do you think? She didn't react, didn't flinch. Fair enough, she said. Look, your mom told me what happened, or at least as much as she could explain. And I thought maybe I could help. Help with what? I muttered, glaring at her. Teach me how to braid my hair? Paint my nails? Brittany smirked. I mean, if you wanna, we can. But no, that's not what I meant. Then what? She shrugged. I thought maybe I could help you figure out what being a girl means since, you're still new to it. I stared at her, my jaw tightening. I don't want to figure it out. I don't want any of this. I get that, she said softly. But you can't just ignore it forever. Like it or not, this is your life now. I didn't answer. I just turned away, my fists clenching in my pockets. Brittany didn't push. She just sat there, watching me quietly, like she was waiting for me to come to terms with it on my own. Do you hate me for being here? She asked suddenly. I blinked, turning back to her. What? For being here. For trying to help, she said. Because if you do, I'll stop. I just thought maybe you needed someone to talk to. Someone your age. Someone who gets it, at least a little. I stared at her, at the concern in her face, and for a moment I wanted to snap at her. I wanted to tell her that she didn't get it, couldn't possibly get it. But I didn't. Because as much as I hated to admit it, part of me didn't want her to go. I don't hate you, I muttered finally, my voice low. She smiled faintly. Good. We sat there in silence for a long time after that, neither of us saying anything. And for the first time since waking up in this body, it didn't feel like the world was about to collapse around me. The silence between us stretched, heavy but not as unbearable as before. Brittany sat across from me, cross-legged on the couch, like this was just any other day. Like everything about my life hadn't just been ripped apart and rearranged. I sat stiffly on the edge of the cushion, hands shoved in my pockets, my eyes fixed on a spot on the carpet. Do you want anything to drink or eat? Brittany asked after a while. I've got snacks. No, I muttered. She nodded and leaned back against the arm of the couch, her hands playing with the ends of her hair. I caught her sneaking quick glances at me now and then, but she didn't push. Finally, after what felt like forever, I blurted it out, my voice low and bitter. I know my football career is over. Brittany blinked, sitting up a little straighter. What? I exhaled hard, staring at the floor. Football. It's over for me. What are you talking about? She asked, frowning. Why would it be over? Because look at me. I shot back, gesturing at myself, at the jeans and the stupid t-shirt and everything else that felt wrong. I'm not Connor anymore, Britt. I can't just walk back on the field and act like nothing's changed. I look like this, and no one's going to take me seriously. Not the team. Not coach. No one. Brittany watched me carefully, the frown still on her face. That's not true. Yes, it is, I said flatly. You think the team's going to let a girl play quarterback? You think coach is going to put me back in? They're probably already looking for someone to replace me. Derek said they're holding your spot, she reminded me softly. Yeah, well, they're wasting their time, I muttered. I'm done. I'll never play again. I didn't realize how much saying it out loud would hurt. Football had been my life since I was old enough to throw a ball. It was who I was. The weight room, the field, the games under the bright lights, that was me. And now it was gone. Just like everything else. Brittany was quiet for a moment, and I expected her to say something cheesy about how I could still try or prove everyone wrong. But she didn't. Instead, she tilted her head and asked, Have you thought about other sports? I snorted. Other sports? Like what? She shrugged. I don't know. Something different. Maybe something that works with your new body instead of against it. I stared at her, not sure whether to be angry or confused. What's that supposed to mean? Brittany smiled faintly, like she knew she was about to say something I wouldn't like. You're smaller now. Lighter. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. Have you ever thought about trying gymnastics? I blinked, stunned. Gymnastics? Yeah, she said, her voice perking up. I've been doing it for years, remember? My mom used to drag me to practice every day. I still train at the gym 3 times a week. I shook my head, leaning back against the couch. That's not funny, Brittany. I'm not joking, she shot back, smiling wider now. Think about it. You're like the perfect height and build for it now. Gymnasts are small, flexible, strong. You've already got the athlete mindset. You'd pick it up faster than you think. The perfect build? I repeated bitterly, my stomach twisting. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Brittany rolled her eyes. Look, I get it. It's not what you want to hear right now, but just hear me out, okay? Gymnastics isn't all about twirling and sparkly leotards. It's hard work. You'd be on the floor doing flips, handstands, building strength on the bars. It's not easy. I shook my head, staring at her like she was insane. I can't just start doing gymnastics. That's your thing. Not mine. She shrugged. It doesn't have to be mine. Can be yours too. Why are you even saying this? I muttered, looking away. Do you really think I'd be good at it? Or are you just trying to get me to accept this? I gestured to myself, unable to stop the bitterness from dripping into my voice. Brittany didn't back down. I'm saying it because it might help. You're an athlete, Charlotte. You always have been. That doesn't have to change just because everything else has. If football's out, then maybe it's time to try something new. Something you might actually be great at. I stared at her, not sure whether I wanted to argue or just shut down. Gymnastics isn't me, I said finally, my voice hollow. She smiled faintly. Neither is sitting here doing nothing. Look, you don't have to decide now. I just think you should come to the gym with me sometime. Watch a practice. See what it's about. If you hate it, you never have to go again. I'll think about it, I muttered, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure if I meant it. Brittany grinned and stood up, stretching like she'd won the argument. That's all I'm asking. Who knows? You might surprise yourself. I watched her, a mix of frustration and something else I couldn't quite name. Gymnastics? The idea was ridiculous. I wasn't some gymnast flipping around on mats, I was a quarterback. Or at least I had been. But as much as I wanted to shut her down completely, a tiny part of me, buried way too deep to admit, wondered what it would be like. If I really could be good at something else. If I could find a way to feel like an athlete again. Or if that part of me was gone forever. Brittany walked toward the kitchen, calling over her shoulder. You want something to drink now? I've got Coke. I sighed and leaned back against the couch, letting my head drop against the cushion. Sure. Gymnast drinks soda too, you know, she teased, and I rolled my eyes even though she couldn't see me. As I sat there, staring up at the ceiling, I couldn't shake her words. Something new. Maybe that's what scared me the most. Brittany returned from the kitchen with 2 cans of Coke, setting one in front of me on the coffee table. She sat back down on the couch, popping her can open with a faint hiss. So, she said casually, it's pretty nice outside today. You want to go swimming? I nearly choked on my first sip of soda. Swimming? Yeah. Brittany grinned, leaning back into the couch. It's hot out and we've got the pool all to ourselves. Come on, it'll be fun. I stared at her like she'd just suggested I jump off a cliff. Are you serious? Swimming? What? She asked, shrugging. You used to love swimming. That was different, I said quickly, setting the can down on the table. I was different. Brittany raised an eyebrow, giving me one of those looks she used to give me when she thought I was being dramatic. It's just swimming. You still know how, right? Unless you've forgotten in the last few weeks. That's not the point, I muttered, crossing my arms over my chest. Then what is the point? She challenged. I looked away, my jaw tightening. I didn't want to say it. I didn't even want to think it. But Brittany, of course, could read me like a book. Oh, she said slowly, realization dawning on her face. It's about the swimsuit, isn't it? I stiffened, glaring at her. No. She smirked knowingly. It totally is. You're worried about wearing a swimsuit. I'm not, I shot back, but my voice was too defensive to be believable. Charlotte, Brittany said, her voice softer now. It's not a big deal. It's just me. I'm not going to care what you look like in a swimsuit. You might not care, but I do, I snapped. Do you seriously expect me to go out there looking like, I gestured vaguely at myself. This. Brittany sighed and stood up, stretching her arms above her head. I do, actually. Because you're still you, no matter what you're wearing. Come on, it'll feel good to get out of your head for a little while. Just relax for once. I shook my head. No way. Brittany didn't give up. She walked over to the stairs and called down the hallway. Give me a second, I'll grab you one of my swimsuits. What? No. I shot to my feet, my face burning. I didn't say yes. You're not getting out of this, Brittany called back, disappearing upstairs for a moment. I stood there frozen, my hands balled into fists as I heard her rummaging around somewhere. When she returned, she held up a plain black one-piece swimsuit like it was no big deal. I'm not wearing that, I said immediately, shaking my head. Why not? Brittany asked, genuinely confused. It's just a swimsuit. It's not sparkly or frilly or anything. It's pretty basic, honestly. Because, I trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't make me sound insane. Because it's a girl's swimsuit. Brittany sat back on the couch and looked at me seriously. Okay, yeah, it's a girl's swimsuit. But, Charlotte, you're in a girl's body now. You can't exactly swim in jeans and a t-shirt. I turned away, frustration bubbling in my chest. Then I won't swim. Why are you so afraid of this? Brittany asked softly. It's just you and me. No one else. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. You don't get it, I muttered. Then explain it to me, she said, her voice patient. I turned back to her, my fists clenched. It's because wearing that thing makes all of this real. Okay? That's why. Every time I look in the mirror, it's like I'm staring at someone I don't know. Someone I don't want to know. And now you want me to go out there wearing that like everything's fine? Like I'm just supposed to accept it? Brittany's face softened. She set the swimsuit down and crossed her arms. Charlotte, I can't imagine how hard this is for you. I really can't. But avoiding everything that reminds you of this body isn't going to change the fact that you're here. And you're alive. I blinked at her, my chest tightening as her words sank in. You don't have to love it. You don't even have to like it, Brittany continued. But maybe, just maybe, you could stop hating yourself for 5 minutes. I'm not asking you to be anyone you're not. I just want to spend time with my friend. That's all. I stared at her, my throat tight. It's not that simple. I know, she said softly. But maybe this can be a step. A small one. Just you, me, and the pool. No one else has to see you. No one else has to know. I looked at the swimsuit lying on the couch. It wasn't flashy or frilly, just plain black, like Brittany had said. Part of me still wanted to say no, to dig in my heels and refuse. But another part of me, tired and worn out from fighting everything all the time, wondered what it would be like to just stop. To let myself float in the water and not think for a little while. I sighed and rubbed the back of my neck. Fine, I muttered, not meeting her eyes. But if you laugh even once. I won't, Brittany said quickly, grinning like she just won a bet. I promise. You'll see, it'll be fine. I grabbed the swimsuit off the couch, my cheeks burning. Where's the bathroom? Down the hall to the right, she said, still smiling. I stomped toward the bathroom, feeling like I'd just been talked into my own execution. I shut the door behind me and stared at the one piece in my hands, my heart pounding. Just get it over with, I muttered under my breath. Getting into the swimsuit was about as miserable as I'd expected. The fabric felt alien against my skin, smooth and snug, hugging my body in ways I wasn't used to and didn't want to get used to. It was almost too tight, clinging to every curve, every angle, as if it was trying to remind me of everything I was trying to forget. I stepped into the leg holes first, pausing as the elastic fabric stretched around my thighs. The sensation was strange, too close, too intimate. The snug fit made me feel exposed in a way I never had before, even though I was technically covered. My mind drifted back to swim trunks, how easy they were to slip on, how simple and straightforward they felt. This is anything but simple. As I pulled the swimsuit up over my hips, I couldn't ignore how it molded to the shape of my body. The fabric didn't just fit, it conformed. Smoothed over my hips, emphasizing their curve, and pressed flat where my boy parts used to be. The absence was like a glaring void, one I couldn't stop noticing even though I tried. There was nothing there. No lump, no discomfort from trying to adjust myself in trunks like I used to. Just a flat expanse of smooth fabric, unbroken and unforgiving. I hesitated, gripping the straps in my hands as I stared down at the suit. The top half was designed for a chest like mine, a chest that hadn't existed until now. I pulled the straps up over my shoulders, the material tugging slightly before settling into place. The snugness around my chest was unsettling, the way it lifted and shaped me, making it impossible to ignore the fullness there. I missed not having to wear anything over my chest. It had always been so freeing, just swim trunks and nothing else. There was no preparation, no self-consciousness, no overthinking. Just freedom. Now, there was none of that. Everything felt calculated. Wrapping my arms around myself, I tried to block out the sensation of the swimsuit against my skin. The way the straps pressed against my shoulders. The way the fabric hugged my waist and hips. The way it made every inch of my body feel foreign and unfamiliar. Charlotte! Brittany's cheerful voice cut through the door. What's taking so long? You're gonna love it once you're in the water. I couldn't answer her. I couldn't move. Slowly, I turned to face the mirror, bracing myself for what I already knew I'd see. The reflection hit me like a punch to the gut. A girl stared back at me. Her body was lean and athletic, her skin smooth and flawless, and her dark hair was pulled back into a neat ponytail. Plain black one-piece clung to her every curve, from her slightly curving hips to her defined waist. Her shoulders were narrower than mine used to be, lacking the broadness I'd spent years building on the football field. She wasn't me. She couldn't be me. And yet, she was. I lifted a hand to touch my chest, my palm brushing against the smooth fabric. Beneath it, the softness of my body pressed back, a stark reminder of how much had changed. Didn't feel like armor the way swim trunks and a bare chest used to. Felt like a costume. Like something I was pretending to wear, pretending to fit into. Brittany's voice came again, more insistent. Come on, Charlotte. Don't make me drag you out here. I tore my gaze away from the mirror, forcing myself to take a deep breath. The swimsuit didn't fit me. Fit the body I was in now. And for better or worse, that was all anyone would see. Wrapping my arms tighter around myself, I opened the door. Brittany's face lit up as she saw me, and she let out a low whistle. You look amazing. I told you it would suit you. I didn't respond, stepping out and hugging myself tighter as her grin widened. Let's hit the pool, she said, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the water. I tried to focus on the excitement in her voice, the warmth of her smile. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the heaviness in my chest, or the reflection I'd left behind in the mirror. I followed her reluctantly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The swimsuit clung to me like a second skin, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone who saw me would somehow know what I was thinking, what I was feeling. But as Brittany dashed ahead, laughing as she dipped her toes into the water, I tried to focus on her enthusiasm instead of the knot of discomfort in my chest. Just one step at a time, I told myself. That's all I can do right now. I rolled my eyes and followed her outside, the warm air hitting me as we stepped onto the deck. Pool sparkled in the sunlight, clear and blue and inviting. Brittany walked to the edge of the pool and glanced back at me. Well? You coming in? I hesitated for a moment, my fists clenching at my sides. I felt exposed, like the whole world could see me even though it was just us. But Brittany didn't stare or make a big deal out of it. She just grinned and jumped into the water with a loud splash. Come on, she called, treading water and grinning up at me. It's nice, I sighed, stepping closer to the pool. My reflection stared up at me from the water, distorted and rippling, but I ignored it. Slowly, I sat down on the edge, dangling my legs in the cool water. Brittany floated closer, splashing me lightly. You're halfway there. I scowled. Don't push it. She just laughed, and for a moment it felt like old times, like maybe I could forget even just for a little while. I slid into the water, letting it surround me, cool and comforting. Brittany grinned. See? Not so bad. I didn't answer, but I floated on my back, staring up at the sky. For the first time since yesterday, my mind was quiet. The water was cool and calm, a strange relief from everything that had been pounding at my mind lately. I floated on my back, staring up at the clear blue sky, letting the water hold me. For a few brief moments, it was easy to pretend that none of this had happened, that I wasn't in a body that didn't belong to me, wearing a swimsuit I never would have touched before. But, of course, Brittany couldn't leave me alone for long. Okay, I'm bored, she announced, breaking the peace as she swam over. I'm getting out. I turned my head, treading water as I watched her pull herself out of the pool. Her blonde hair clung to her shoulders as she grabbed a towel and started drying off. Then, with a grin that immediately put me on edge, she turned back toward me. Hey, I have an idea. I narrowed my eyes. I don't like your ideas. You haven't even heard it yet, she said, rolling her eyes. Come on. Get out of the water. I want to show you something. I'm fine right here, I said, swishing my hand through the water. You're no fun, she teased, wrapping the towel around her shoulders. I'll be in the yard. When you're done sulking, come watch me. She didn't wait for a response. Brittany skipped over to the wide open space of her backyard just beyond the pool deck. I watched her for a moment, curiosity getting the better of me as she dropped the towel and started stretching her arms above her head. What are you doing? I finally called, my voice echoing across the yard. Showing off, she shouted back with a grin. What does it look like? With that, she took off at a light jog, then launched herself into a perfect round-off. Her legs whipped through the air with practiced grace, and she landed flawlessly before shifting into a series of back handsprings. I blinked, stunned despite myself. She made it look so easy. When she finished, she stood up straight and turned toward me, breathing hard and smiling triumphantly. See? I still got it. I hoisted myself onto the edge of the pool, dripping water everywhere as I stared at her. You're insane. That's what you used to say when I was on the beam in practice, she said, walking back toward me. But now I'm starting to think you're the one who's insane, sitting there instead of trying it yourself. I laughed dryly, shaking my head. Not happening. Oh, come on, Brittany said, exasperated. I'm serious. I think you'd be good at it. I'm not a gymnast, I shot back. You're wasting your time. Brittany groaned, grabbing a dry t-shirt from a chair and tossing it over her shoulder. You don't have to be anything. You just have to try. I'm not asking you to do backflips off a balance beam. Just one handspring or something. I'll help you. I glared at her. Why do you care so much? Because you need this, she said softly, crossing her arms as she looked at me. You've been so angry, so stuck. I want you to realize that you're still you. You're still strong, still capable, still an athlete. You just need to figure out what this body can do. Her words stung, probably because they weren't wrong. I didn't want to try. I didn't want to give this body any credit for anything. But the way she looked at me, like she really believed it, made it harder to argue. I sighed, running a hand through my wet hair. Fine. Show me. Brittany grinned so wide I thought her face might split in half. Yes. Come on. I stood up slowly, feeling ridiculous as I followed her into the grass, my bare feet squishing into the soft ground. I'm going to regret this, I muttered under my breath. You're not, she said confidently. Trust me. I've taught beginners before. I'm not a beginner, I argued. I'm a football player. Correction, you were a football player. Now you're whatever you want to be, Brittany said, grinning as she stopped in the middle of the yard. Okay, first we'll try a simple cartwheel. You've done one of those before, right? Not since I was like 5, I grumbled. Perfect. You're due for a comeback, she teased. Just put your hands down, kick one leg up, then the other. I'll spot you. I groaned, bending over slightly, feeling awkward as hell. If I fall, I'm blaming you. You're not going to fall. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. My body felt too light, too flexible, and I didn't trust it at all. But still, I lunged forward, hands hitting the grass as I tried to kick my legs up. It wasn't graceful, one leg barely made it above my head, but I didn't faceplant and I landed on my feet, a little wobbly but still upright. Brittany clapped her hands. See? That was good. I straightened up, brushing grass off my palms. That was terrible. It was not, she argued, grinning. You've got the right form. You're just holding back. Try again, but don't be afraid to kick harder. I frowned, glancing at her, then back at the open yard. Fine. One more time. I tried again, and this time I let myself trust it a little more. My legs swung higher, straighter, and I landed with less wobble than before. Brittany hooped loudly, pumping her fists in the air. There it is. She cheered. See? You can do this. I felt my face heat up, but not with anger this time. I'd expected to feel stupid, but instead there was something else, something that almost felt like pride. Okay, your cartwheel's solid, Brittany said, moving closer. Now let's try a back handspring. I stared at her like she'd grown a second head. A what? Relax, she said, laughing. I'll spot you. You just need to lean back, plant your hands, and kick over. I'll make sure you don't fall. This is insane, I muttered, but something in me didn't want to say no. Brittany stood behind me, hands raised, ready to catch me. You've got this, Charlotte. Just trust yourself. I took a shaky breath, my heart pounding. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I leaned back, bending at the waist. My hands hit the ground, and with a kick of my legs, I pushed off. For a split second, I felt weightless, suspended in the air, and then my feet hit the ground again. I staggered forward, blinking in shock. Brittany clapped and jumped in place. You did it. I knew you could. I turned to stare at her, breathing hard, my face flushed. I actually did it. Yeah, you did, she said, grinning ear to ear. That was awesome. I couldn't stop the small smile that crept onto my face, though I quickly wiped it away. It was okay, I guess. It was more than okay, Brittany insisted, punching me lightly on the arm. You're a natural, Charlotte. I flinched at the name, but for the first time I didn't snap back at her. I was too caught up in what had just happened, what my body had just done. Maybe Brittany was right. Maybe I was still an athlete. I just didn't know what that meant yet. By the time Brittany finally stopped testing me, making me try handstands, back handsprings, and even a shaky attempt at a round-off, I was exhausted. Not physically, though. That was the weird part. My body didn't feel tired like it used to after football practice. I wasn't out of breath, my legs weren't aching, and my arms didn't feel like jelly. It was just my brain that felt like it had run a marathon. Brittany stood with her hands on her hips, grinning like she'd won a bet with herself. I told you you'd be good at this. I sat cross-legged in the grass, brushing bits of dirt and leaves off my legs. Yeah. Don't let it go to your head. I won't, she teased, but someone had to remind you that you're still an athlete. I didn't answer, but deep down I hated how she wasn't wrong. The moment I landed that first back handspring, awkward as it was, I'd felt something. A spark, maybe. Not happiness, but not the anger I'd been dragging around since the hospital either. It was the closest I'd come to feeling capable in this new body. I didn't want to admit it, though. Especially not to Brittany. Okay, she said, clapping her hands together as if to shift gears. That was fun. Now it's time for the next step. I frowned. Next step? Yup. Brittany grinned mischievously. We're going to try on dresses. I stared at her, sure I'd misheard. Wait. What? Dresses, she repeated, like it was the most normal thing in the world. You know, pretty flowy things you wear to look nice? I know what a dress is, Brittany, I said, scowling. Why would I try one on? Because it'll be fun, she said simply, like that was reason enough. No, I said firmly, getting to my feet. Absolutely not. Brittany rolled her eyes and grabbed the towel she'd left on the pool chair, tossing it over her shoulders. Come on, Charlotte. You said gymnastics was insane, and look how that turned out. You're better at this stuff than you think. This isn't the same thing, I shot back. Gymnastics is just moving. It's sports. A dress? I trailed off, struggling to find the words. That's different. How? She asked, giving me that same challenging look she always gave when she was about to wear me down. Because it's a dress, Brittany, I said, throwing up my hands. You know what that means. Dresses are for girls, she finished for me, her tone soft. I snapped my mouth shut, my fists clenching at my sides. She didn't say it to be mean. I knew that. But hearing her say it still made something in me twist. You are a girl now, Charlotte, she said gently. At least on the outside. I know you hate hearing that, but ignoring it isn't going to change it. I turned away from her, pacing a few steps into the grass. I can't. I'm not. I'm not ready for that. You don't have to be ready, Brittany said, her voice following me. Look, it's not like I'm asking you to go to a party or anything. It's just trying on clothes. Just you and me. No one else has to see. I shook my head, frustration building in my chest. Why are you pushing this? Because you need to stop being so scared of it. Brittany's voice wasn't teasing anymore. She sounded serious, maybe even a little sad. You're acting like wearing a dress is going to change who you are, but it won't. It's just fabric. It doesn't define you unless you let it. Her words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I turned back to her, glaring. You don't get it, Britt. Then help me understand, she said, meeting my gaze evenly. What are you so afraid of? I opened my mouth to answer but couldn't. What was I afraid of? That I'd hate how I looked? That I'd like it? Would putting on a dress be the final step in erasing the old me? I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to say no. But Brittany didn't let up. It's not a big deal, Charlotte. It's just trying on clothes. We can make it stupid and fun. Heck, I'll let you pick something awful for me to try on too. Deal? I stared at her, searching for something, some excuse, some argument, but Brittany was relentless when she wanted something. Fine, I muttered, crossing my arms. One dress. That's it. Brittany's face lit up like she'd just won a gold medal. Yes, I knew you'd come around. One, I said again, holding up a finger. And if I hate it, we're done. Deal, Brittany said, already dragging her towel and stuff back toward the house. Trust me, you might surprise yourself. I followed her reluctantly, every step feeling heavier than the last. My stomach churned as I tried to process what I'd just agreed to. Brittany was wrong. This wasn't like gymnastics. It wasn't about strength or agility or being an athlete. This was about looking like someone I wasn't, someone I didn't want to be. But part of me deep down wondered, what if she was right? What if it wasn't as bad as I thought? I shoved the thought away as we stepped inside the house. One dress. That was all I was giving her. Brittany pulled me up the stairs and into her bedroom before I could protest again. Her room was exactly like I remembered it, tidy but covered with little touches of Brittany's personality. Photos pinned to a corkboard, posters of random bands, a pile of gym gear tucked into the corner. Except now it felt like enemy territory. Sit, Brittany said, pointing at her bed like I was a misbehaving dog. I dropped onto the edge of the bed with a dramatic groan, watching as she disappeared into her closet, rummaging through hangers. You're enjoying this too much. Not true, she called back. I'm so excited. That's literally the same thing, I muttered under my breath. A few seconds later, she emerged triumphantly, holding up two dresses. The first was a blue sundress, simple, flowy, and thankfully not too frilly. The second dress, though, was different. It was black and deep purple, sleek but elegant, something you'd see at a fancy dance. I glared at both of them. You've got to be kidding me. Brittany ignored me, holding the blue sundress out with a big smile. Here. Start with this one. Simple, comfortable, and hey, it's blue. That's more your style, right? I blinked at the dress, my heart sinking into my stomach. She wasn't wrong. Blue had always been my color. I didn't know whether to feel grateful or annoyed. Why do you even have something like this? It's from last summer, Brittany said with a shrug. It's cute, but not too over the top. Perfect for you to ease into. Ease into? I muttered, eyeing the dress like it might bite me. Yes, she said firmly, tossing it at me. I caught it awkwardly, holding it up like it was something fragile. The bathroom's down the hall. Go try it on. And don't take forever. I hesitated, looking between her and the dress. This is stupid. You agreed, she shot back, crossing her arms. One dress. You promised. I let out a long sigh, dragging myself off the bed. Fine. But if I hate it, I'm burning it. You won't hate it, she called after me as I trudged toward the bathroom. Inside the bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it, clutching the dress like it might vanish if I dropped it. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long moment, wet ponytail, baggy towel still clinging to me, a face that felt familiar but wrong. The same reflection I'd been avoiding since the accident. This is so stupid, I muttered under my breath. I tugged off the towel and pulled the dress over my head, my movements stiff and clumsy. The fabric was soft, lighter than I expected, and it fell to just above my knees. I tugged at the hem, frowning at how easy it was to wear. When I looked in the mirror, my stomach twisted. The blue dress fit perfectly, almost too perfectly. It wasn't tight, wasn't fancy, wasn't screaming girl at the top of its lungs. It was just simple. Plain blue. And that made it worse. I didn't look ridiculous. I looked normal. Like someone you'd see walking down the street or sitting at a coffee shop. Like a girl who'd been wearing dresses her whole life. I stared at my reflection, my throat tight. My first instinct was to rip it off, to pretend it had never touched me. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring. Brittany knocked lightly on the door, pulling me out of my daze. Are you coming out, or did you drown in the dress? Give me a minute, I snapped, though my voice didn't carry much heat. She giggled from the other side. You're fine. I know you look great. Shut up, I muttered, turning away from the mirror. I unlocked the door, stepping out into the hallway. Brittany was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, her face lighting up when she saw me. Oh my God, Charlotte. You look adorable. Don't say that, I shot back, glaring at her. My cheeks burned, and I tugged at the hem of the dress again. It's weird. It's not weird, she said, stepping closer to inspect me. It's perfect. See? I told you blue was your color. I didn't respond, chewing the inside of my cheek as she circled me like she was evaluating her work. I felt exposed, uncomfortable, but a small part of me couldn't deny that she was right. The dress wasn't terrible. Didn't feel like me, but it didn't feel bad either. Okay, my turn, Brittany said suddenly, grabbing the black and purple dress she'd left on the bed earlier. What are you doing? I asked, frowning. Trying this on, she said with a grin. It's the dress I'm wearing to homecoming, and you're going to help me decide if it's perfect or not. Homecoming. The word hit me like a punch to the chest. My knees felt weak, and I sank back onto Brittany's bed, staring at nothing. Homecoming, I muttered under my breath. Yeah, Brittany said, pulling the dress over her head. It's this Saturday. I'm going with a group of girls, but I want to look nice. What do you think? She turned around to face me, holding out the black and purple fabric so it swirled around her legs. She looked beautiful, like someone who belonged at a dance under the bright lights, surrounded by laughter and music. But I wasn't looking at the dress anymore. Saturday. The accident happened on Saturday. I'd been late to football practice, arguing with Mom, stressed about getting to practice. I remembered the car spinning, the crunch of metal, the sickening moment when everything went black. And now it is Wednesday. 4 days passed. 4 days of my life gone. And when I woke up, I'd lost everything. Charlotte. Brittany's voice broke through my haze, pulling me back to the room. I looked up at her, my chest tight, my hands trembling against the fabric of the dress I was wearing. It's only Wednesday. Brittany frowned, sitting down beside me. Yeah. Are you okay? I shook my head slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on me all at once. Homecoming is in 3 days. I was supposed to play. I was supposed to be on the field with the team under the lights. Brittany's face softened. Charlotte, I'm not supposed to be here, I said, my voice cracking. I'm not supposed to look like this, or wear this, or be this. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, quietly, she reached over and took my hand. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know it's not fair. But you're still here. You still have time to figure out who you are now. And maybe that's something worth showing up for. I looked at her, my eyes stinging, but I didn't pull my hand away. I didn't know if she was right. I didn't know if I could ever figure this out. But as I sat there in that blue dress, with homecoming only days away, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't escape. And I didn't know if I wanted to face it or run from it forever. Brittany leaned back on the bed, still in her black and purple homecoming dress, twirling a lock of her hair between her fingers. So, she said casually, like she wasn't about to drop a bomb on me, how do you plan on getting through the school uniform policy? I froze, mid-fidget, still tugging at the hem of the blue sundress I'd been forced into. What? You know, she said, propping herself up on her elbows and grinning like this was some hilarious joke. The uniform. All the girls have to wear pleated skirts and polo shirts. Remember? My stomach dropped. I stared at her, hoping she'd take it back. You're joking, she shrugged. I'm not. You know how strict they are. The boys get slacks, the girls get skirts. That's just how it is. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My mind raced through memories of the hallways, rows of students, girls in pressed skirts that fell just above the knee, their uniform polos neatly tucked in, their backpacks slung over their shoulders. I remembered walking past them every day, dressed in my own loose khakis and school polo, never giving it a second thought. Now that was supposed to be me. No, I muttered, shaking my head. No way. I'm not wearing that. Brittany sighed, sitting up straighter. Charlotte, it's the rule. Everyone wears the uniform. If you show up in anything else, you're going to get sent straight to the principal's office. Then let them send me, I snapped. My voice sounded harsher than I'd meant it to, but I couldn't help it. My chest felt tight, my pulse pounding in my ears. They can call home. They can suspend me for all I care. I'm not wearing a skirt. Brittany tilted her head, her expression soft but exasperated. You can't avoid this forever. Watch me, I shot back, my hands gripping the edge of my dress like it might keep me from falling apart. Charlotte, Brittany said gently, using that name I still hated. Look, I get it. It's not fair. But if you're going back to school and you're going to have to eventually, you'll have to deal with the uniform. You can't fight it. Why not? I growled. Why does everyone just expect me to accept this? Like, hey Connor, sorry you woke up in a girl's body. Here's your skirt and polo. Get used to it. Brittany frowned. You're making this harder on yourself. I glared at her. Harder? Harder? Do you have any idea what this feels like? To have everyone telling you what you're supposed to be now? To just go with it like none of this is a big deal? You don't get it, Brittany. You can't. She didn't flinch, didn't snap back. Instead, she sat quietly, her hands resting in her lap. You're right, she said softly after a long pause. I don't get it. I don't know what it feels like to be in your shoes. But you're still going to have to figure out how to live in them, Charlotte. That doesn't mean you have to like it. But you have to try. Her words hit me hard, and I looked away, swallowing the knot in my throat. I hated that she was always so calm about it, like this wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to me. I hated that part of me knew she was right. You don't understand, I muttered, my voice quieter now. She tilted her head. Then help me. Tell me what's going on in that head of yours. I didn't answer. How was I supposed to explain it? That the idea of walking through those school doors in a skirt, of hearing people whisper or laugh or stare, made me want to disappear? That I'd rather run away, live under a rock, or never show my face again? I didn't trust my voice, so instead I just said, I can't do it. Brittany didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me this time. Instead, she stood up, brushing her hands off on her dress. "You don't have to decide right now," she said. "But school's coming up fast. And whether you like it or not, you're going to have to figure this out." I watched her as she walked back to her closet and hung up the dress she'd tried on earlier. My mind kept spinning. Pleated skirts, polo shirts, everyone staring, everyone knowing. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. But deep down, I also knew Brittany was right. I couldn't hide forever. "Okay," Brittany said suddenly, breaking the heavy silence that had settled over us. "We're done talking about the uniform for now." "Good," I muttered, leaning back on the bed. "But," she continued with a sly grin, "we're not done with your transformation." I blinked, sitting up straighter. "What are you talking about?" Brittany didn't answer. Instead, she rummaged through a small makeup bag on her desk, pulling out tubes and brushes like a magician preparing for a trick. My stomach twisted with dread. "No," I said immediately, holding up a hand. "Whatever you're thinking, the answer is no." "Oh, come on," Brittany said, her tone light and teasing. "I just want to try a little makeup. Nothing crazy. Trust me, it'll be fun." "This isn't fun for me," I shot back, crossing my arms. She pouted dramatically, holding up a tube of mascara. "Not even a little?" "Look, I promise I won't make you look like some beauty queen. Just a little eyeliner, some lip gloss, and maybe some blush. Something simple." "Why?" I asked, glaring at her. "Why do you care so much about this?" "Because," she said, stepping closer and gesturing toward me with the mascara wand, "I think if you let yourself see how good you can look, you might stop hating everything so much. Just give me 5 minutes. If you hate it, I'll wipe it all off, no questions asked." I stared at her, my jaw tight. I wanted to say no. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to refuse. But Brittany had a way of wearing me down, and deep down I knew she wouldn't drop it until I gave in. "Fine," I muttered through gritted teeth. 5 minutes. That's it. Brittany's face lit up, and she practically bounced with excitement. "You're the best. Sit still." I stayed stiff as a board as Brittany worked, my heart pounding with every brush and swipe. She talked the whole time, her voice cheerful and soothing, but I barely heard her. All I could think about was what I'd see when she was done. "There," she said finally, stepping back and inspecting her work. "Not bad, if I do say so myself." I hesitated, my hands clenching the edge of the bed. "Is it over?" "Not yet," she said, reaching for something on her dresser. She held up a thin silver necklace with a small charm dangling from it, a star or a flower, I couldn't tell. "No way," I said immediately. "Yes way," Brittany said, grinning. "It's subtle, I promise. Just a little finishing touch." I sighed heavily, not moving as she fastened the necklace around my neck. Cool metal rested against my collarbone, and I resisted the urge to rip it off. "Okay, last thing," Brittany said, grabbing a pair of flats from the corner of the room. She knelt down, holding them out toward me. "These go with the dress perfectly." "Shoes too," I groaned. "Don't complain," she teased. "At least they're flats." I could have gone with heels. The thought made my stomach churn. I slipped my feet into the flats reluctantly, trying to ignore how comfortable they actually were. Brittany clapped her hands together, stepping back to admire her work. "You look amazing," she said, beaming. I glanced at the mirror across the room, and my breath caught in my throat. The girl staring back at me was someone else. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, her face softly framed with mascara and blush. The necklace added a delicate touch, and the dress flowed easily around her as she shifted awkwardly in the flats. It wasn't me, but it was. "You hate it, don't you?" Brittany asked, her grin faltering. I didn't answer, swallowing hard. "What now?" Her grin returned full force. "Now we go to the mall." I whipped my head toward her, eyes wide. "What?" "No." Absolutely not. Yes, Brittany said, grabbing her purse and slinging it over her shoulder. You're dressed up, you look incredible, and we're not wasting it sitting in my room. I'm not going out like this, I said firmly, crossing my arms. Are you insane? You agreed to the dress, she said, smirking. This is just the next step. I didn't agree to parade around in public, I argued, panic rising in my chest. You're not parading, she said, rolling her eyes. You're just existing, like a normal person. Besides, no one's going to think twice about you. You look like you belong. The words stung, and I glared at her. I don't belong. Yes, you do, Brittany said, her tone softening. Come on, Charlotte. You can't hide forever. Let's just go for a little while. We'll grab some food, look at some clothes, and come right back. I'll be with you the whole time. No one's going to hurt you. I hesitated, my fists clenching at my sides. I hated that she was always so calm, so confident about this. But a small, tired part of me wondered if she was right. Maybe I couldn't hide forever. Fine, I muttered, standing up slowly. But if anyone stares, I'm leaving. They won't, Brittany said, grinning as she grabbed her keys. Trust me, you've got this. As we headed down the stairs and out the door, my heart pounded in my chest. The idea of walking into a crowded mall dressed like this made my skin crawl. But Brittany was already chattering about which stores to visit, her energy contagious. I didn't know if I was ready for this. But ready or not, I was about to find out. The drive to the mall was mercifully short, but it felt like hours. I sat stiffly in the passenger seat, my hands clenched in my lap as I stared out the window. My heart pounded harder with every mile, my stomach twisting into knots at the thought of walking through those glass doors dressed like this with Brittany acting like everything was fine. Relax, Brittany said, shooting me a quick grin as she pulled into the parking lot. You're going to be fine. You don't know that, I muttered, fidgeting with the hem of my dress. Yes, I do, she said, parking the car and turning to face me. You look amazing, Charlotte. No one's going to think twice about you. And even if they do, who cares? You're with me. I've got your back. I didn't respond, biting the inside of my cheek as she got out of the car. A second later, she opened my door, holding her hand out dramatically like she was some kind of chauffeur. Milady, she teased, her grin widening. I glared at her. This isn't funny. Then stop making that face and come on, she said, grabbing my hand and pulling me to my feet. As I stumbled out of the car, tugging at my dress, Brittany reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. She waved it in front of me with a mischievous glint in her eyes. What's that? I asked warily. This, she said, drawing out the word, is from your mom. She gave me some cash to help you replace your wardrobe. And, she paused for effect, grinning even wider, to help you find a homecoming dress. I stared at her, my chest tightening. You're kidding. Nope, she said cheerfully, tucking the envelope back into her purse. She said your closet's still full of boy clothes and it's time to fix that. Plus, homecoming's in a few days and you need to look fabulous. I groaned, pressing my palms against my face. This is a nightmare. It's not that bad, Brittany said, patting my shoulder. It's just shopping. I promise I won't make you buy anything you hate. That's not the point, I said, my voice muffled behind my hands. Then what is the point? Brittany asked, pulling my hands away and meeting my eyes. Charlotte, I know this feels overwhelming, but your mom's right. You need clothes that fit you, that work for your life now. You don't have to love it, but you do have to do it. I glared at her, my fists clenching at my sides. I hate this. I know, she said softly, her grin fading. But maybe it won't be so bad. Hey, we can make it fun. I'll help you pick stuff out. We'll get you some jeans, some t-shirts, maybe even a jacket. It doesn't all have to be frilly or girly. Deal? I hesitated, chewing the inside of my cheek. I wanted to argue, to fight back, to refuse. But the truth was, she wasn't wrong. My old clothes didn't fit anymore, literally or figuratively. And as much as I hated the idea of shopping for a whole new wardrobe, I didn't see a way out of it. "Fine," I muttered, crossing my arms. "But no dresses." "Except for homecoming," Brittany said quickly, her grin returning. I groaned again, but she didn't give me a chance to argue. She grabbed my hand and tugged me toward the mall entrance, her energy practically dragging me along. As the glass doors slid open and the hum of the mall hit me, my stomach churned. Shoppers bustled past us, carrying bags and chatting, and I felt like every pair of eyes was on me. "Relax," Brittany said, squeezing my hand. "You're doing great. First stop, jeans and tops." I nodded stiffly, letting her lead me toward the nearest clothing store. But in the back of my mind, all I could think about was the envelope in her purse and the dresses waiting at the end of this ordeal. This was going to be a long day. The day was already unbearable, and we'd barely started. Brittany dragged me from store to store, practically buzzing with excitement as she piled clothes into my arms: jeans, t-shirts, sweaters. Most of it was relatively simple, nothing too girly, but every time I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, I felt that pang of discomfort, like I was looking at someone else. Just as I thought I might survive the ordeal, Brittany suddenly veered toward another store, and my stomach dropped the second I saw the sign. "Absolutely not," I said, stopping dead in my tracks. "Charlotte," Brittany said patiently, turning to face me. "I'm not going in there," I said firmly, crossing my arms. She tilted her head, giving me that exasperated look she'd perfected over the years. "You don't even know why we're going in there." "It's a bra store," I shot back. "I'm not an idiot." "You need this," Brittany said, grabbing my arm and gently pulling me toward the entrance. "I already have bras," I argued, digging my heels in. "No, you have sports bras," she corrected, not letting go of my arm. "That's fine for workouts, but you can't wear those all the time. You need at least one properly fitted bra." I stopped walking, staring at her like she'd just spoken a foreign language. "Properly fitted?" Brittany nodded, her voice gentle but firm. "Yes. Sports bras are great for football and gymnastics, but they're not made for everyday wear. Trust me, you'll be a lot more comfortable in something that actually fits." I groaned, running a hand down my face. "Why are you so obsessed with this?" "I'm not obsessed," she said, rolling her eyes. "I'm just trying to help. Look, this isn't a big deal. We'll go in, you'll get measured, we'll find a bra or two that works, and we'll be out in no time." "No," I said flatly. "This is too much. I'm not doing it." Brittany sighed, crossing her arms. "Charlotte, come on. I know this is embarrassing, but it's just you and me. The salespeople are super nice, and they do this all the time. They're not going to care. And once you've got a bra that actually fits, you'll feel so much better." I glared at her, my face burning. "This is humiliating." "It's not," Brittany insisted, her voice softening. "I get that it feels weird, but you're going to have to do this eventually. Might as well get it over with, right?" I hesitated, chewing the inside of my cheek. I hated how calm she was, how easily she made it sound like this was just normal. Like it wasn't a huge deal. Finally, I let out a long sigh and muttered, "Fine. Let's just get this over with." Brittany's face lit up and she grabbed my hand, dragging me into the store before I could change my mind. The interior was bright and softly lit, with racks of bras in every color and style imaginable. I kept my head down, avoiding eye contact with the sales associates as Brittany led me to the counter. "Hi," she said cheerfully to the woman behind the register. "We're looking to get her fitted." I froze, my stomach twisting. "Brittany." The woman smiled warmly, cutting me off. "Of course. Follow me and we'll get you taken care of." Brittany nudged me forward, and I reluctantly followed the saleswoman to a small, private fitting room. She was kind and professional, talking me through the process as she measured me, but I barely heard her. My face was burning, and my hands clenched into fists at my sides. When she was done, she smiled and handed me a couple of bras to try on. "These should be a good starting point," she said. "Let me know how they feel, and we can make adjustments if needed." I mumbled something that might have been a thank you and closed the door, staring at the bras in my hands like they were some kind of alien artifact. "You okay in there?" Brittany called from outside. "No," I muttered under my breath, but I didn't bother saying it loud enough for her to hear. Trying on the bras was as awkward and uncomfortable as I'd expected, but once I got one on, I had to admit, it wasn't terrible. The fit was snug but not suffocating, and it didn't dig into my shoulders the way I'd expected. It felt functional. I stepped out of the fitting room reluctantly, and Brittany grinned when she saw me. "See? Not so bad, right?" "Don't push it," I muttered, crossing my arms over my chest. She just laughed, handing me another bra to try. "One more, then we're done. I promise." By the time we left the store, I was carrying a small bag with 2 new bras, my face still burning from the whole ordeal. Brittany, of course, was practically skipping beside me. "I'm proud of you," she said, nudging me playfully. "Don't," I said flatly, clutching the bag like it might explode. "You'll thank me later," she teased, grinning. "Now, let's go find some shoes." I groaned, already dreading whatever she had planned next. The mall felt like an endless maze of bright lights and racks of clothes. Brittany dragged me from store to store, her energy never wavering, while I followed behind like a reluctant shadow. She picked out jeans, sweaters, and t-shirts, always managing to find things that were simple and practical enough for me to grudgingly agree to. But the looming shadow of homecoming hung over everything. I could feel it in the way Brittany's eyes darted toward the dress shops as we walked, her grin widening every time she found an excuse to steer us closer. "Okay," Brittany said, clapping her hands together as we left yet another store with a bag in hand. "I think it's time." I froze mid-step. "Time for what?" She turned to face me, her grin mischievous. "Homecoming dress shopping." I groaned loudly, clutching the bag in my hand like it might anchor me to the floor. "Do we have to?" "Yes," she said firmly, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward a boutique with glittering dresses displayed in the window. "We've been building up to this all day. Let's get it over with." I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. I let her lead me inside, the store filled with racks of dresses in every color and style imaginable. My stomach churned as I glanced around, my eyes lingering on the shimmery fabrics and sequins that screamed for attention. "This is going to be fun," Brittany said, practically bouncing with excitement. "Define fun," I muttered, shoving my hands into my pockets. She didn't respond. Instead, she started flipping through the racks, pulling out dresses and holding them up for me to see. Most of them were too sparkly, too frilly, too not me. "This one's cute," Brittany said, holding up a pink dress with ruffles. "No," I said flatly. "Okay, what about this one?" She grabbed a red strapless gown that looked like it belonged on a runway. "Absolutely not." Brittany sighed dramatically, putting the dresses back. "You're impossible." "I never asked to be here," I shot back, crossing my arms. She stuck her tongue out at me and kept browsing, muttering to herself as she searched for something I wouldn't immediately reject. After what felt like an eternity, she gasped and held up a dress with a triumphant grin. "This one," she said, thrusting it toward me. I stared at it, expecting the worst, but it wasn't terrible. The dress was a deep, rich blue with purple trim along the hem and neckline. It was simple, elegant, with thin spaghetti straps that didn't feel too frilly or over the top. "It's okay," I admitted reluctantly. "Just okay," Brittany teased, wiggling her eyebrows. I sighed, rolling my eyes. "Fine. It's not so bad." Brittany grinned and shoved the dress into my arms. "Go try it on. I want to see how it looks." I hesitated, glancing toward the fitting rooms. "Do I have to?" "Yes," she said, giving me a playful shove. "Come on. It'll take 5 minutes." I trudged toward the fitting room, my heart pounding as I stepped inside and closed the door. The dress felt light in my hands, the fabric soft and smooth. I slipped it on carefully, tugging at the straps and smoothing the fabric over my hips. When I looked in the mirror, my breath caught in my throat. The dress fit perfectly, the blue fabric shimmering faintly under the soft lights. Purple trim added just enough color to make it pop, and the spaghetti straps didn't feel as awkward as I'd expected. For the first time all day, I didn't hate what I saw. "Charlotte," Brittany called from outside. "Are you coming out or did you fall asleep in there?" I hesitated, my hands clenching the sides of the dress. "Do I have to?" "Yes," she said impatiently. With a deep breath, I opened the door and stepped out. Brittany's eyes widened and a grin spread across her face. "Wow," she said, looking me up and down. "You look incredible." "Don't," I muttered, my face heating up. "I'm serious," she said, standing and walking over to inspect the dress more closely. "It's perfect. The color, the fit, it's so you." "It's not me," I said quietly, staring at the floor. "It can be," Brittany said softly. "You're allowed to look nice, Charlotte. You're allowed to feel good about yourself." I didn't respond, my hands tugging at the hem of the dress. Brittany smiled and gave me a playful nudge. "So, what do you think? Is this the one?" I looked at myself in the mirror again, my chest tight. The dress was beautiful. And for the first time, I didn't hate the girl staring back at me. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I guess it is." Brittany squealed with excitement, clapping her hands. "Homecoming, here we come." I groaned, but I couldn't help the small, reluctant smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Maybe this wouldn't be as terrible as I thought.